Okay.
Okay, let me just set things up a minute. Ignore that bit. We'll come to that in a minute. Okay, so hello.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second webinar. Today, we're going to have our star speaker, Lauren Garten. She is one of the authors of the stories that you will see in Our Storyscape. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for joining and connecting for this webinar.
Awesome. So this webinar is called Animals Can Also Have an Interesting Life. And I hope you will appreciate the choice of cute animal pictures that I have chosen to enliven this presentation. And this picture here particularly depicts that this cat is having a very interesting life. Okay, so just to go through the contents, we're going to look at a story in the textbook called Tat the Train Cat, which I wrote. And it was kind of inspired by some stories I'd heard of cats who actually have taken the train in the past. There used to be a cat in Japan, I think, that did this. So it was inspired by that. And we're going to have a little bit of a discussion. And then we're going to look at ideas on how you can use this story, ideas for before you start reading the story, during the story, and also after the story. So we'll get straight on and we'll have a look at the story. So as I said, the story is called Tat the Train Cat. There's a few little illustrations here from the book. We'll see these in a bit more detail in a moment. And I managed to find a picture of a cat on his way to board a train. So I'm gonna read through the story and just, I guess, enjoy listening to it, and we'll talk about it more shortly. So pay attention because I want you to talk about it and generate ideas shortly. Okay. So there is a town with a special cat. The cat is called Tat, and he is a train cat. He likes trains. Early in the morning, he takes the train to a town. The town is far away. There are people on the train. They see Tat and they smile. They think he's funny. They think he's lost. Cats don't take trains, but Tat is not lost. This cat takes trains. Tat sits by the window and looks out the train as the train goes quickly, and he sees lots of towns, houses, and trees. They all go by quickly. The train goes under bridges. There are people outside. They ride bikes in the street. It all goes quickly. Late in the day, the train stops. Tat the cat walks to the supermarket. There are people in the supermarket. They see Tat and they smile. They think he is funny. They think he is lost. Cats don't go to the supermarket, but Tat is not lost. This cat goes to the supermarket. At the supermarket, Tat looks for a man. He sees the man. The man has a fish. He walks quickly to the man and the fish. He says hello to the man. The man in the store smiles and also says hello. He gives Tat the fish. Tat likes the fish. There is a fish for you, Tat, says the man. Tat says thank you. The man and Tat are friends. Tat eats the fish carefully. It is very good. He takes the train and goes to the supermarket every day to see the man and eat the fish. Where does it get to? Tat the cat eats the fish and says goodbye to the man. It is late now. He takes the train home. It is far. There are people on the train. They see Tat and they smile. They think he's funny. They think he's lost. But Tat is not lost. Tat is happy. Tat takes the train and goes to the supermarket. Tat eats fish every day. He is a train cat and he has a good life. So that's the story. And as you can see, the pictures show Tat taking the train in the morning. Tat meeting the man in the supermarket and having the fish, and then at the end of the day, Tat getting back on the train and going home. So I would like us to go into breakout rooms, and I'd like us to talk about this question: how could you bring this story to life in the classroom? And I'd like you to think about what you could do for pre-reading activities, during the reading, and post-reading activities. So I'll stop sharing. Do we want to go, are we going to go into breakout rooms, or do you want to talk about it here? What would be preferable?
We can discuss them here, I think, right?
Okay. So I'm not going
to. I have never been in a breakout room.
Okay.
All right. We can keep it simple then.
Yeah, we can just all talk it together. I'm not going to reveal too many of my ideas, but be interested to see what you guys have to say. So if we think about what we could do before we start reading this story, so the children haven't seen the story, what might be a good way to start to prepare the lesson, get them thinking about cats and trains and such things. So any ideas?
You could start off the activity by thinking about, ways to get them up and active using some of the vocabulary. So I could imagine making an activity where you ask your students to get on the train, and maybe, there's some spot in your classroom where you designate to be the train. So you ask them to get on the train. Where are you going? What do you see? And then you ask them to get off the train and ask them what they see then.
Yeah, like a visualization activity. You could get the chairs and put them in a line. You could use your arms like a
yes.
And ask them what they see out the window. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Any other ideas?
Talking about their cats. If somebody has a cat, they can say something about their cat's behavior, the cat's name, routine, okay, or discussing different cat characters, types.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a cat. It could be another animal as well. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, be a fish, maybe.
I would also stress the interesting factor here that is like human and non-human communication, how they communicate, and they like the cat is able to speak and have a conversation with the person, and then the cat's manners, that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, you could also show some, the internet is full of cat videos, and there's plenty of really funny ones on TikTok, different cats. I've just been watching one about a very mean cat. So you could show a variety of different things. There's cats that travel and go climb mountains. There's cats that, I don't know, I've seen so many. I saw a cat eating a dragon fruit the other day. It was covered in purple juice. Very, very funny. So you could look at all these different sort of personalities of cats and compare them to humans, perhaps. Any other ideas of what you could do? Any other thoughts? No? Okay, so we've got some ideas for before. What about during the story? Any thoughts on during the story that you could do? So you're reading the story. Well, first of all, you might want to think about how would you read it? You might want to think about, if you want to read it yourself or if someone else is going to read it. Any thoughts on this?
So this is kind of almost everything that we talked about with Lorena last week, the different things you can do to bring the story to life. So last week we assigned different characters to speak the different roles as we read along. There's not as much dialogue in this particular story, but you could get your students to act it out if there's not as many dialogue roles.
You could create the dialogue, couldn't you? You could say, what people say to the cat on the train, maybe. Yeah. Anything else?
I think we can also have like every student, you can do like popcorn reading and have the students, stop and continue reading, but also have them like make sure they stress the different words that are important, or because here's the thing, sometimes we stress, depending on our feelings and our intentions, we might stress some words, and if we can do it differently, that means that we want to emphasize some aspect of the story because this is our feeling and our interpretation. So maybe have the students stress or highlight the words they might need to stress, and how they would do it is another way to see how they feel about the story.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. A lot of ways of practicing pronunciation involve saying different sentences in different ways, depending on your mood and depending on the effect you want to create. So that's quite important. It'd be quite fun for a drilling exercise, I would say.
Me and my students, we like changing voices. So I would take a fragment from the story and ask them to read it like Santa, or, you know, quietly, angrily, happily, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good idea. Delia, I can't see you, but I don't know if you're here, if you can hear us.
Yes, if you want to, comment at any time, if you don't want to turn your microphone on, you can always chat, and I'll make sure that all of us see your comment.
Oh, she says she's at someone else's place.
Oh, a party.
Party!
Okay. Well, you can always chat if you have any ideas as we go along. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. And finally, obviously, I think the place where you can probably get the most out of the story is usually after you've read the story. So again, I'd be interested to hear some of your ideas for what you might do after the story.
Role play. So the students would put some more dialogue into the story and basically like create a piece of drama. So
yeah, and they could maybe not just read it, they could use their bodies in some way.
Move, okay, walk around and
make your costumes. Someone has some cat ears at home they want to bring.
Face paint.
Yeah.
School one.
Yeah. Anything else? No? Okay, well, I have generated some ideas, which I'm going to share with you now. So just give me a moment while I need to share my screen again. Okay. Here we are. So, as I said, so we're looking at before, first of all. So how could you pre-teach vocabulary? How could you generate interest in the story? Because you want to have the learners motivated and interested. You don't want to say, oh, this is boring. And also it's very important before you're reading a story to try and predict content, because in that way it makes it more accessible to understand the story if you can access vocabulary that they already have. Because if they feel lost, then they're more likely to switch off and not engage with the story. So I've said, how could you pre-teach vocabulary? So obviously the real standard ways to pre-teach, you use flashcards. So, we've got things like the cat, the train, the supermarket, the town, things like this. And you could play lots of different games with that. One of my favorite games is to put lots of different cards up and sort of say, take one away and ask them like, what's missing? And you can do that with just the words, but you can also start to practice some of the sentence structures. So there is a town, there are people, there is a cat. Okay. You could also create more intrigue by doing something like Hangman, and sort of maybe even revealing the title this way, Tat the Train Cat, and getting them to find out what the title is through Hangman. And also very simply like matching the words to the pictures. Another way you could do it is you could say, Tat is a special cat. Why is he special? So obviously you guys have read the story, but I could ask you, why is Tat the cat special? And you could offer me some ideas and we could brainstorm these ideas. We could also, this is similar to an idea earlier, like what do cats like to drink, eat, do, what's their personality? Dominica, I think you talked about this. And you can use total physical response. So I don't know if you want to do anything with me right now, but you could be like, let's do the cat's ears. You could do
Nothing.
cat's whiskers. I can't jump right now on the screen. We could jump up like a cat. We could, what else can you do as a cat? Have you guys got any ideas? What, like lick the middle?
Purr, like a car.
Yeah. Meow.
Purr.
Hiss. So a lot of different words in vocabulary. Yeah. Is the cat happy or sad or angry? And then you could go deeper and you could explore, other animals, because some people would say, oh, but I like dogs. So you could go through all the different motions of different animals. From goldfish, you could do a little, like the fin of the goldfish. A lot of kids, when I was a kid, I used to like pretend to be a puppy. Going,
Oh,
yeah,
that's so cool.
So you've got lots of things you can do, especially with little children. I'm not so sure how much it would work for 12-year-olds, but I don't know. You could ask them to use their drama skills, and maybe have like an award for the best animal. And then you could, keep it a bit more like, you don't have to go so dramatic. You could just put the title on the board and sort of elicit what the story is about. So Tat the Train Cat, what could this be about? And get some ideas and talk about where the train might be heading, and how would the cat get on the train? What would be the problems that might happen? Those sorts of things. Okay, whereas drawing, there's also some other ideas. So you could read it together and do a gap fill. So you could, take out the words and put the words at the bottom of the screen or around the room, and they could find the words and then complete the gap fill. Or you could do a running dictation. Again, you could do gap fills like this. So they could have to find the word that's missing, and they could run around the classroom and read parts of the text. I think running dictation is a really nice one, really, because it means you can kind of sit back and let them do the work. You can always then reread the story again a second time afterwards. So they get like double exposure to the story. So this one, I always find that running dictation, you just have to make sure that you can, your class isn't too rowdy and you can manage it. But I think that children really love this one. You can dictate parts of the story for the students to write. So it's very good for their listening skills. But obviously you'd have to just make sure that you weren't too preoccupied with spelling, because that might make them feel a bit anxious. But, that you could even encourage them to ask you like, oh, how do you spell this word? And get them practicing, becoming more familiar with the alphabet. You could read the story and test what students remember at certain points. So by asking them questions. You could pause the story and ask questions as well, such as where is Tat going? Why do people think Tat is funny? What might Tat want at the supermarket? I mean, that could be a whole activity in itself, all the different vocabulary of different food at the supermarket. If you were going to the supermarket, what would you buy? If you were a cat and you had $100, what would you buy at the supermarket? You could actually pull out more grammar if you wanted to, even if it's a story that's, quite basic. You could use it for higher levels in that respect. You could ask who is the man and generate like a background story to finding out about the man. Oh, someone else arrived. Hi, Alina. Just noticed the chat. Yeah, so these are different questions you could ask, and you could expand on these in so many different ways. As for after, there's so much you can do to be creative. So one of my ideas I had was, you could make Tat a social media cat, and you can go online, especially if you have access to a computer room, or bring in some magazines from various shops, and you could create like an Instagram collage. So I've got here obviously this version of Tat is very stylish. He's obviously got a lot of money. And he's having a nice day out.
Glamorous Tat.
Yeah, glamour puss. So you can have little captions like Tat is hungry, or Tat is on the train. So I found a picture of a train. You know, a lot of people, when they do Instagram, they like to take pictures of their food. So you could have a competition to find the most glamorous meal for Tat, even if it is from a supermarket. Maybe in your version of the story, he goes to the Ritz, or he goes to Hard Rock Cafe or something like that. So you could create like a whole like poster of different things that he did, and you could keep the language quite simple, but equally, if you wanted to, you know, challenge the students, you could get them to write more creative captions.
Hashtags.
Yeah,
yeah.
hashtags. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just checking the chat. Oh no, just keep seeing it go. And then with the website, there's obviously some tasks there that help as well. So we've got here, you know, you can match the pictures with the captions. So Tat likes to look out the window of the train. So which one do we think it is? Oops, sorry. So there's some things on the website that already help you, activities you can do, maybe for homework or like sort of self-study. There's also some listening activities, and I guess I'm assuming with the recording device here, the students get to record their answers, so they get to verbally practice. Yeah. That looks
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are like they listen to the questions in relation to the story. You know, like normally we have like reading comprehension questions. These are like comprehension questions that they have to listen to, and then they have to record their answer.
Okay. And can they get the opportunity to re-record if they want to improve what they say? Is it like a
Yes.
And as the teacher, you know, for any activity like this, you can change the settings to, you know, if it's like using it as a test, a different activity maybe. You can limit the number of tries, so maybe they only get to try twice before they have to submit. So that's one feature that's nice about the recording activity.
Is this here like you can change the speed as well?
Yes, so if your students are having trouble understanding, they can slow it down. I think they could even speed it up, which I don't know how useful speeding it up would be, but you know, for fun.
Funny, yeah, it can make them laugh. I've also got some other ideas here. So you could create an interview with Tat or the man at the supermarket. And I think there's an editor tool in our platform that you can use. I don't know if someone could tell us a little bit more about that. I don't know so much about that.
Yeah, so for the editor, anything that we've created in the platform, you can also create yourself. Basically, you can make your own page, or you can add on to an existing page. For example, on that recording a page that we looked at, you could record your own voice asking a question and then add that at the bottom. Or you can make an entirely new page with any of those activities. So some of these ideas I'm sure could translate as well onto the actual platform itself.
You could also do a Flipgrid, and I'm going to show you an example of a Flipgrid that I've done. So if you're not familiar with Flipgrid, it's a really useful tool. Let me just see if I can open it up. Share my screen. I use this for my university students, but it's you can use it for all ages. So this is what it looks like when you want to join. You can sign up, and here is my account. So what I have done is I've created a topic, so interview with Tat the Cat, and you can create videos, you can do all kinds of things. And if we just look here, I'll just show you very quickly. So these are for my my adult students, but if I just click on one, you know, I've done an introduction here, I put a video, and then all the students, they can record their own videos. You can limit how long it takes for them to talk. So maybe you want them to only talk for 2 minutes, maybe you want them to talk for 5 minutes, and they can watch each other's and you can ask them to comment on each other's. So that's how it works generally, but just for the sake of this particular activity, so I've created a little video, so I'm going to show you this video with you now of me interviewing the cat. So
Hi Tat, how are you? Hello, I'm very well. What are you going to do today, Tat? Well, I am very hungry. Oh, really? What do you want to eat? A big fish. Mmm, delicious. Where are you going to get the fish from, Tat? Why don't you guess? From the sea? No. From a river? No. The supermarket? Yes. But how are you going to get to the supermarket, Tat? Are you going to go by bus? No. You going to walk there? No. How are you going to get there, Tat? I'm going to take the train. Wow, Tat, that's very clever. That's a good idea.
so okay, that's a bit embarrassing, but it's kind of fun. You could get them to do that. I've got a shark here. This is the famous IKEA shark. I'm not sure if he's got his own Instagram page actually, and he's very versatile. You can put, we had him at the dinner table earlier drinking a Coca-Cola. So he's kind of fun, but you can, choose any animal, and there's, as you can see here, I've got these little pictures of cats. So you can add stickers and make it very dynamic and fun, and it's just really fun to then you can watch them and maybe vote for the best one. So yeah, it's kind of a fun tool, and also it's good for you to then sort of see like what problems the students are having and things that you can then help them with in terms of improving their vocabulary and their speaking. So I'll just go back to the slide. You can also create like a new adventure by maybe taking a different animal and taking them and going somewhere different. So you could create a comic book strip, and I think it says here there's supplemental material on our platform as well for that. Is that right?
Yes, so we have a few different worksheets available for you to print out in the additional resources tab. But we have like blank comic strips. There's like a Venn diagram, a couple different things that you can use throughout the curriculum to supplement the learning process.
You could do some error correction of Catlish. So you could be like, my cat is learning English. We'll call it Catlish, or it could be Doglish or Fishlish. And you could say,
cool.
Cat has been learning English. He's making some mistakes. Well, I'll show you an example in a moment. You could also write a news report on the phenomenon. You can definitely find some newspaper articles about this cat in Japan that used to get on the train. And there's so many cat related things out there right now. There's like a cat island in Japan. There's like a cat town in Taiwan. I've been on a cat boat in Amsterdam before. There's a lot of
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of cat tourism out there. So you could, even get them to sort of investigate other cat tourism and things that cats might find interesting. I don't know. And you could, if you're writing this report, you could get, you could practice things like reported speech and get quotations from people at the train station or on the train, the supermarket. And you could also play charades. So just to show you the example of Catlish. So you could have some very basic errors and be like, these are some errors that Tat has made whilst learning English himself. So you could, put them on the board like this, like Tat is train cat. So they need to kind of correct this. So you could say, what could be wrong with this sentence? Do you guys want to try and guess?
I think it's missing a word.
Yeah. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tat, train cat. And you could then maybe, if you want to push the learners more, you could say, how do we say this in the negative form? How do we say this in the question form? So you can really, go deeper with the errors if you want to. So you've got different ones here that you can experiment with. So yeah, that's kind of all that I've got here at the moment. I was wondering if any of these things that I've suggested today, if there's any other thoughts of things that you've come up with from just listening to this webinar.
I really like the Instagram and the picture and the fact that we are teaching the cat to learn like English. Oh, that's super cool because we are creating new words like catlish, doglish, fishlish, like so we can also teach the use of like combined words, how we create these words and we are making up a new one. It's a great, very interesting concept, I think.
I think that would be a really good thing. Like, could you make up some special language that cats only say, but that has a mixture of English, perhaps, with it? And they could make, I know when I was a kid, I used to really enjoy making codes. So maybe children could make up their own codes as well using Catlish, and then they could practice speaking Catlish, maybe.
When you mentioned Catlish, I thought that it's something else, like when for example you take meow, so the sound that the cat makes, and you put it in a sentence. For example, my cat likes meowing milk, and the students must guess the verb. Right? So meowing instead of drinking. And another sentence, meowing is a different verb, okay? Or meowed past, or,
Yeah, you could also just sort of, you could look at things like prefixes and suffixes, for example, like re-meowing or meowation.
Right.
What words can we think of that could be meowation? Like, I don't know. I can't think of any meowation.
The act of meowing consistently with the same tone.
Meowation. That's cool. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of things. You could go on and on with it, really. And then with charades, I've got things like here I've written down, like, well, it could be Pictionary, or you could do charades. So like again, total physical response. So things like the train moving, or like a window, opening the window. You could do like, you could go further with that, like opening the window, closing the window. Fish. You could, I mean, when I've got small young learners, one of my favorite things to do as a warm up is to get them all in a circle, and we do I call it like Superman. But you start by like clapping. So you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and and then it's something like jump or like hop. But then I do other things like crying, like woo, or like hello, and I asked the different children to make up their own ones. So maybe having done this activity, you could get them to create a cat movement that's new and unique. So it might be that they're like just like whiskers, or maybe licking the milk, like. But they always really enjoy it when they get to take ownership and create something as well. And you give it a name, and then they remember that name. And then if you do it again next class, it's like a test of their memory as well. So that can be really fun. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else got anything else to add, but that's kind of me for me.
I also think it's super interesting, like that the concept of communication, like I love it how like we teach these cats to communicate, and we can understand cats because they can understand us, but it's like how we make sure that the cat can communicate with us.
Well, it's like looking through your body language when you're talking as well. And I think that's quite an important thing to stress to learners of a different language anyway, because you know, when you don't know a word, you do have to use things like charades and your body to kind of get your message across. Like, you know, oh, do you have something to, or like, you know, when you're ordering in the restaurant, you know, you like the bill. So you do have to kind of feel your way through it sometimes. And I think sometimes people think they have to know all the language to get by, but you can say, like, you know, like if you're stuck, there are other ways of communicating your message if you need to. So giving students strategies on how to cope if they were in a foreign country and they needed to find a way to communicate their meaning. So yeah, you could say, like, you know, Tat is a cat and he managed to travel to the supermarket, so you know, he can't speak English. So you can also go to an English speaking country and get by, you know, even if you can't speak English completely well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think changing the animal could also be very interesting. Whether it is a lion, how would people react to the lion in the train?
And there's plenty of other books out there that cover that kind of those topics as well, if you want to bring more stories into the classroom as well.
Well, I would say even within the platform, you know, you can read Tat the Train Cat once with your students, and then maybe, you know, next week you edit it, you add in a lion instead of a cat, and you change a few of the things around, and then you show it to your students again and use some of the same techniques, but say, why do people scream instead of, you know, smile at Tat? You know, just change it up within voces.
I think you could draw it out into a whole like month's worth of work in some ways if you wanted to. You know, it could be an online project. I've done things like with my students, not so much on cats, but like looking at something like Egyptians, and we've been working on a collaborative. It's something that we do like a little bit at the end of every class. So, you know, it might be that you have a different focus for every class, but you are like, this is the story of the month. And at the end of, you get like, say, 15 minutes at the end of the class where you work on a project. So it could be that the students are working to create their own stories. So you could get cardboard and make their own books, and they have to, you know, they get like 15 minutes to work on one of the pages and color it in and, you know, draft the story, so that by the end of like the month, you've got like they can take something home to their family, which is like a book of their story. Or it could be a poster if you're doing a display wall, and you can bring in lots of things like, you know, gold stickers, and so you could create like a, you know, proper like glitzy Instagram sort of poster. So it doesn't have to be something that's just confined to like one class. Basically, you can really dig and get a lot more out of it. It can be a vehicle for much more learning, I think.
Will definitely stick longer in the brain the
Yeah.
longer you work with it.
One of your ideas was to create a comic strip, right? I used to, I like it very much. I used to print like an empty comic strip pattern for my students, but now you can do it online. So this is pretty cool. You can do it in Canva, for example, or you can do it in Jamboard. Canva has comic strip patterns now, so it's very nice. You can send your students a link and then like give them some time, and then they can, yeah, they can prepare their own comic strip about cats or something like that. Or Jamboard is also pretty cool for such projects.
What's that? What's the Jumble?
Jamboard, that's a Google tool.
Ah.
I'll write it in.
Yeah, we used it last week.
Yeah, it's it looks like a presentation because there are slides, but you can put something in the background and it stays there. The students can't change it, but they can edit the rest. So they can add images, text, GIFs. It's really nice. And it's a free Google tool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can use all of those ideas.
I think also, like, you know, when I was younger as well, I used to love memorizing things. I think especially little kids, they really, like, I used to memorize lots of poems and things. So you could like turn parts of the story into a chant or a song. You could pull things out. You could even find a song, you know, if you're good at playing the guitar. You could turn bits of it into a song and they could learn that. And when it's a song, I think children are more likely, like, I think learning a language for singing is really effective. You remember it years later when you're like,
yeah, baby shark will stay with us forever.
Yeah. Have, like, you know, not my, you can't do like baby tat tat tat, you know, but like you know,
Baby cat, baby cat.
I used to take things like row 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 your boat and jingle bells, and I would put vocabulary in it. So I think when I was doing sea animals with like 3 or 4 year olds, we do things like I can remember it now, like whale, octopus, shark and crab, jellyfish, I don't know, sea moth, you know, like, and if you do that every class and you do like the movements with it, then my plan was that they would remember it for like later, or like you can take kumbaya and just change the words. So there's always that as well.
There is actually a video of a cat on YouTube. It's like the keyboard cat, and the cat is playing the keyboard. So funny. So you can turn that into a song too.
I'm sure there's lots of things, and you know, you, like I said with the TikTok videos, if you find a short one of a cat going for a walk in the woods, you could get the students to describe what they see. So, you know, the cat is in the mountains, the cat is walking, he sees a river, I don't know, whatever happens, you know, he's angry. That's also a way you could.
There are also in the internet, there are many animals in clothes. So my idea is to use, for example, a cat, and the student's job is to find or draw cat fashion. Okay, so they draw after the story, they draw perfect outfits for different situations. So London weather, or perfect train outfit, or, you know, something like that.
Historical outfits, you know, Henry VIII cat, or like
yeah,
because you do get those like really funny pictures of dogs and like with ruffles and, you know, family portraits. So you could do that as well. Yeah, I think there was even a story where there was a dog that went back in time, didn't he? And he used to play different characters in time. There was actually a TV series about a dog.
That sounds familiar.
Wishbone, I think it was called Wishbone. And he used to be like Shakespeare or something. The TV series.
Yeah, that's awesome. Lots of ideas of how we can implement this and turn this story and use so many different resources to continue with this theme. Super, super nice. And our storyscape is animal friendly because we include lots of different animals in the stories.
Yeah.
And super cool.
Yeah, definitely gonna be some more. I'm writing more animal stories as we speak. So,
Yes, the first few for Our Storyscape 2 have been, you know, Lauren's been working on those this week, so I'm excited about those. And for anyone interested, we're hoping to have, you know, the second installment of the curriculum done sometime by the end of the summer, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, for those maybe coming to us from elsewhere. I don't have an exact date yet, but you can be looking forward to that this year for sure.
Great. Do we have any other questions? We're good so far. Thank you, Lauren, for inspiring us today, bringing us all these creative ideas. And when teachers' heads get together, we can do so many things. And creativity can really explode. You know, we really enjoy exchanges different ideas and trying to go from one idea, we get, inspired and we can use those in our classes.
It's
So
definitely true, because even with the ideas that I came up with, I'm surprised by how many other extension ideas you guys have all come up with as well. Like, I was like, wow, yeah, I didn't think of that.
Awesome.
that is always the great thing about the webinars, and the takeaway, what you take with you and what are these kind of things that you can use in your class. And hopefully we'll continue to inspire other teachers that are watching this live on Facebook. And we're going to see you guys next week. Next week's webinar is going to be on gamifying our EFL classes. So we'll hope to see you there. And it's going to be on Thursday at 4 p.m. Argentina time.
Yes. So we'll be there
So-
playing games. We hope that you can all come
Yay!
and have some fun with us.
Yes. Yes. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Dominica. Thank you, Alina, Delia. And thank you all of those who are joining our Facebook Live. We'll see you guys next Thursday on Unveiling the Power of Storytelling, the webinar series that we are trying to bring to you so you get more creative ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Should just finish recording. Was that okay?
Yeah, that was great.